Digim leaves default uncommented out, and then pretty much everything else I'm going to remove out here. Alright, so the first thing we're going to add is a local context, and the first thing we're going to include in the local context is default. And we're going to go ahead and make a demo setup. And in the demo setup, we're basically going to make it play a file. Answer. And answering the call is important. Some devices, such as, or some applications such as Gtalk, don't handle too well to not answering, and the media won't play well. However, if you're using a PRI circuit, you don't have to answer the channel, and it won't answer. And if you can actually hand back a PRI cause code, but if you answer the channel, then the switch thinks that the call got answered, and you're going to be billed for it. Last thing I'm going to do is hang up. One other thing I'm going to do here on these 700s is I'm going to add an underscore in front of them, which basically means ignore the first character. I tend to have a lot better luck when I add that. I'm going to go ahead and dial 700.
Weasels have eaten our phone system.
And you can see that I left the SIP debug on. If I go SIP set debug off, and I go ahead and call it again, you can actually see our dial plan in action. And you can tell that by the green and purple. All right, so we've made our first Asterikast telephone call. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a new file called outbound.conf. And we're going to create a context in there called outbound. And we're going to create default routes for any of our outbound calls, so our 7-digit or 10-digit or 7-digit or 11-digit dialing. Here in Spencer, we do 7-digit or 11-digit, 1+ or NXX, XX, XX. So what I just added there was the equivalent of saying like 580, 7050. The X simply just stands for any digit. You can do other digits like N, and N will only accept a certain range of digits, but for our purposes here, we're just going to do all X's. So we're gonna dial SIP peer, and we haven't actually created this peer. I'm just kind of showing you how it works. We'll go and create a fake peer here in a second, because we have nobody to peer with here, because we're extremely firewalled here. And I'm going to hang up. So basically what I've done here is any 7-digit number is going to start here because it's priority 1. It's going to dial SIP, the peer name, the extension that I dialed, which is the same thing as the 7 digits except filled in. It's going to try to ring that for 20 seconds if it gets a connection. If there's no connection, it's going to go right to hang up, but otherwise it's going to try to ring it for 20 seconds and then go to hang up. I'm also going to do the same thing for 11-digit. Alright, we got it. So now, if we simply just edit the sip.conf, and I'll show you quickly how to make a peer. I'll just do it right here, and we called it peer, and this is where the name comes from. And it's going to be a type of a peer. context, it'll be default. And that only matters if that peer is going to send you calls. We'll do EULA, and let's say that they like, actually let's say they like to do just GSM. They're an Asterisk only provider and they like to send the calls GSM. Host equals some peer dot asterikast.com. And let's say they got a username of John, secret of XGTH67. Something like that. I suppose that could be similar to something that you need. And let's say that you've got an external interface. You're going to do a canray invite equals yes. You do *-r, reload. You type some, for example, 5807050 send. And oh, I forgot to include it in my extensions.conf. That's important. So we're going to include a file by saying pound include outbound.conf. Then you're going to come down here and below demo, this is actually going to be the last thing in our dial plan. Nothing like starting backwards. And we're going to do *-r, reload. Now we'll have better luck. Oops, I hung it up. I missed something up here. No, don't call it .conf because it's actually the name of the context rather than the outbound.conf isn't the name of the. So there, you can see the call went through. It tried to connect to the peer. It was unable to connect to the peer, and it went directly to hang up. So if you had a SIP peer, you would actually put it in the same spot where I put the peer. However, like I say, we don't have a peer to use. All right, so now what we're going to do is give your telephone a DID. You can get your DIDs, direct inward dial, from your telephone company, from a like a SIP peer, IX peer, anything like that. This should be pretty standard.
And there's a couple of websites you can get them from too as well online.
Yep. So did.conf is what we'll call the file. We'll include DID. Remember, we're including outbound last because if you think about this, I'll just go into this to show you real quick. If you think about this, by having all X's there, what that's going to mean is that it's going to capture anything with those digits. And if you've got that first, it's going to capture that digit pattern. So that's why we have our outbound as last. So now we're going to go ahead and edit the did.conf. And we're going to call the context DID. And we're going to have a really, really difficult phone number. Our phone number is going to be extend 999-999-9999. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to answer it. You don't have to answer it in this instance because when you pick the actual phone up, it's going to answer it. However, I'm just going to answer it. So dial SIP/100. And I'm going to do that for 20 seconds. So now, if I dial 999-999-9999, you can see that my phone just started to ring again. So it's basically like a call waiting. So I'm going to hang that up. So there. So now that's as simple as it is to add a DID. And if you have a peer provider, such as like one on our SIP.conf, and you have an incoming number from them, you'd actually change this context here to say DID. Then it won't drop right into your default context, which is probably a little more secure. All right, so let's give this guy some voicemail. We're going to pretty much keep this file intact, and we're going to scroll down to the context default, and we're going to give, first thing we type in is the mailbox number, and we're going to make it simple and make it the same as the phone number.